By this time, the world and the entire MCU knows that Chadwick Aaron Boseman has passed away. And I'll be honest with y'all, I truly don't know how to feel about that. Because I really was fighting not going live tonight. But the more I sat and thought about it, the more my hands really couldn't catch up with what I wanted to say, which happens on rare occasions where the mind and hands don't necessarily link up like I want them to. But the one thing I wanted to come in and say tonight is just man. It's like it feels like Kobe passed away all over again. And there is one of my Facebook friends, shouts to Leon Wise, who said that losing Black Mamba and Black Panther in the same year is too much. I completely agree. But the one thing that struck me as I began to write my elegy, because, that's clearly what I do now. But the one thing that struck me as I was writing my elegy was the fact that if Chadwick was, because he didn't like to be called Chad, at least by us in the public, Chadwick was 43 years old. I am 39. The reports are saying that he had been fighting colon cancer for 4 years. Now, if we do a little math, we know that the MCU is about a decade old, right? My oldest daughter, who will actually be turning 13 in a matter of days, she will never know a time where she has not seen herself on screen. She will never know a time that there was not Black Panther. But I'm going to put a pin in that just right quick. If he had been dealing with this for 4 years, that means he was sick or diagnosed right at the beginning of production of Black Panther. Because most MCU movies take about 2 years to cycle out of production. So he was sick then. He was sick during the filming of The Five Bloods, 21 Bridges, and every other project in that 4-year span. Man. He was not at his optimum health status then. And it reminded me of my father, who actually died of he actually had a heart condition, but at the same time, the same parallels exist. Most Black men that I know, when they have duty, honor, and passions and things that they have to protect and provide for or be example to, they press. They press and they press out. They make ways, they endure, and they show up, bro. Danielle, close the umbrella.
Yes, ma'am.
The one thing that I saw in the life of my father was even when at his most ill, he still made sure we got to school. He still made sure my mama was okay. He still made sure that we were all right. He still pressed out for us. He showed up every day for us. So I can't imagine what it was like for Chadwick to know that he was sick and still doing all this stuff. Still memorizing scripts. Still memorizing lines. Still giving commencement speeches. Still showing up. I completely agree, Chris. But I'm going to put a pin in that because there's something else I want to say about that. But the one thing that they teach us in psychology is this concept of John Henryism. Now, those of you who may not be familiar with the tall tale, is that John Henry was, the rhyme says that he was born with a hammer in his hand, and he had all this strength and all this power, and he was able to beat a steam engine laying railroad ties, and that he had basically, according to the poem, he had a massive heart attack, and he died after getting a cool drink of water. And so in psychology, what they liken John Henryism to, or link it to, is this idea, this attitude that most black men have, where they just have to keep going regardless, that they press out regardless, that they do regardless, they show up regardless. Sick, ill, broken, indifferent, depressed, they show up regardless. So I cannot imagine what it was like for him to have to get up and do, but the responsibility that came with getting up and doing. Again, for those of you who have followed me for some time, know that my dearest cousin, Jason, actually is an artist by nature, and it is because of him that I have such an affinity for comics, that I fell in love with Marvel before I ever knew DC even existed. And it is, and the loss feels deeper. It feels deeper than what I thought it would. Now, I know that everybody grieves differently, and that's fine. And I'm not telling anybody how to grieve, because I know there are people who will come across this page and say, will come across this video and say, well, Jen, you didn't know this man. People always freak out when celebrities die. This hits different, as the kids say. This hits different. He literally pressed out for a generation of young black men who will see themselves as superheroes. As a superhero. In a time that you really have not seen that before. That he was out here doing chemo and whatever physical ramifications came with that, and still doing interviews, still signing autographs in airports, still showing up to award shows, still pressing out and doing. And I cannot help but think that John Henryism is still a factor in this culture. And it was but he pressed out for us, man. He pressed out for us. And the one thing that I wished he would have gotten the chance to do is write more, because the brilliance that is Ryan Coogler, I can't imagine what he and Ryan would have come up with. I can't imagine what he would have been able to come up with by himself. Because he was brilliant. And even using the past form of be to describe him is sad. It is sad on a level of myself being a writer, just like dag. One of the secret fears I believe most writers have is that you die before you say everything you want to say. That you die with a question. You die with a but. You die with a comma. You die with a semicolon. That the work that you have, the work that you want to do, the work that you want to leave, can't be completed. I can speak for myself in that end. That's a secret fear that I have. One of the reasons why I write like I do is because so that doesn't happen. So my children don't find things that I just didn't write down. But the one thing that hits so differently about his loss is not just his age, not just his talent, not just the fact that the only time now that we'll be able to see Chadwick is on screen. Okay, awesome, bet, dope. The thing that hits different about this is it just feels like there was more for him to do. It feels as if it feels like we've been robbed. It feels like we as collective blackness have been robbed. The king is gone. The king is gone. So how do you cope with that? And to answer my own question, I actually wrote a poem about that. I actually wrote an elegy for him, and I put it on in this very spot. So feel free to enjoy that. The title of the work is called How Do You Bury a King? But this hits different because it just feels that we were robbed, man. It feels like we were robbed. It feels like somebody kicked in our door, stole all our stuff, and then just left. When the house was already damn near vacant anyway, but you come in and steal what? And death is a thief and a robber anyway. So the fact that we as blackness, as creative blackness, are trying our best to nurture people and create stuff and help get through the shenanigans and trash ass event that is 2020. That Chadwick Boseman dies when we really haven't gotten over Kobe Bryant. Like, Chadwick is dead, the King is dead, T'Challa is dead. With Black Panther's production schedule supposed to have been started next year in Australia. It just the depth of this grief just feels different. It just feels that someone has just stolen something from us. It feels like we have been robbed. It feels like we have been robbed. It feels like we have been shortchanged. And I know, and this is the curse, the blessing and the curse of working in healthcare, because you develop what my health assessment teacher calls the grid. You develop this ability to look at people when they're sick and know something is not right, even if they never tell you. Chadwick had been ill for a long time, and I really began to notice when he gave his commencement speech at Howard. I'm like, because he didn't look right. He didn't look right. You know, he was losing weight. People were clowning him. Oh, look at him. He owns something. But now look at you. The man had cancer and still showed up for us. Still showed up for people who look like him. And was part of one of the highest grossing Marvel movies of all time. And still showed up for us. And still that's the thing that is sticking with me. He still showed up for us. Doing chemo, how many other times a week to try and find some kind of remission, find some kind of medium, and kept working. He doing all these fight scenes and keep working. He's doing all these interviews. God knows if he had gone from chemo and come over there or taking a nap, whatever he had to do to keep going. As a young woman, as a younger woman, and now an older woman, having seen my own father go through something like that, it hits different. It hits different when you've actually seen John Henryism in action. It's different when you've actually seen it. Because I had actually seen my father feel so bad that he literally laid in the floor for a couple of hours. I remember one time we were visiting my aunt, his sister, and he laid in the floor because he had to get strength to drive us home. Like, you have to understand how deep this is. You got to understand how deep this is. That he was ill, doing all this stuff, doing the thing he loved, sick, on some level impaired, on some level not feeling good, and probably having many a day saying, man, I just can't right now. I just feel too bad. I just can't do it right now. And, and I can't even think now of how Marvel's going to fix this one. And there was a gap there. But before the gap started, I was saying that there was already rumors and talk that Marvel and/or Disney didn't want to pay him the money that he wanted to go do Black Panther 2. And I wrote a piece about that on I Breathe Fire, where it says I pay Chadwick Boseman all his money, pay him all whatever he demand, pay him. So now we're at the stage where, in order to make this movie, y'all gonna have to find somebody. They're gonna have to find somebody with the same presence as Chadwick. They're gonna have to find somebody who could do it. And the rumors are that Shuri might be the next one. Okay, that's fine. But me myself as a black writer, as a fan of his work, as a fan of him as a man, because he was a good man. He was a good man. The fact that he is gone, and gone so young, it feels like we've been cheated. It feels like we have been cheated. It feels like we have been robbed, y'all. It feels like we have been robbed. And I'm trying my absolute best not to cry on this camera, but that's exactly how I feel. He showed up every day for us, man. He showed up every day for us. And I know people are like, oh man, he did all the famous black people movies. Okay, but who else was doing them? God knows Jamie Foxx can't do all of them. And I really gained respect for him after he did 42, the Jackie Robinson movie. I gained so much respect for him as a man when he did that particular movie. For those of you who know me in real life, know that one of my heroes in this life is actually Jackie Robinson. And I know a lot of people think that he was soft and he really didn't do much, but you have to understand that Jack Roosevelt Johnson did a lot. Robinson did a lot. He did a lot, and it would behoove you all to Google him. But this just hits differently. And the thing I keep coming back to, my sticking point for the reason why I'm doing this live, is the fact that he pressed out for us. He pressed out for us. Because again, Black Panther was only released 2 years ago. It was only released 2 years ago. And 2 years before that was Civil War? So, I was sitting here and piecing together this timeline, my heart just breaks. Because all I could think is, he pressed out doing what he loved. And doing what he loved, having a piece of the culture on his back. Having the real, even in an interview that I believe Danny Guerra and Lupita Nyong'o were in, where he actually broke down and cried because of what it meant to actually bring Black Panther to screen and have him be an integral part of that. And that cannot be overstated. One of the reasons why I do the work that I do, again, and write the way I do, and even have the platforms that I do, including the writer's block, is that my desire is to fight casual erasure of Black writers and artists. It is my supreme hope that through that work of fighting erasure, of giving space, of giving platform, of stepping fully into what it means to be black and woman and writer, is that I inspire those who will either come alongside me or come behind me. And my prayer is that Chadwick may have done the same thing. And I believe he did. And again, the thing that just keeps ringing in my heart, keeps ringing in my head is he pressed out for us. He pressed out for us. He pressed out for us, man. He pressed out for us. He pressed out for every black boy who looked at a Marvel comic and wished he saw himself on screen. He pressed out for that. And it just feels like we have been cheated. It feels like we have been robbed. It feels like something precious has been stolen from us. And we can't get it back right now. The only thing that we can do is continue to try and go forward and make inroads for someone else, if not for ourselves. But it just feels like we have had something stolen from us. And I think we have. Matter of fact, I think we have. But again, death is a thief and a robber. And this internal enemy, this cancer, stole Chadwick Boseman from Collective Blackness and the world of the arts. It stole him. It stole him. And he fought to stay here. And he fought to stay here. So this hits different. I remember when my oldest daughter came home from watching Infinity War, the first part of it. And I remember her crying. Matter of fact, my youngest went to go see it in theater. My oldest watched it on Netflix. And I remember I was laying down. She came in my room and she told me, Mommy, they have killed our king. And I remember telling her with a smile on my face, I told her, I said, Munchie, nobody really dies in the MCU. Nobody really dies in the Marvel comic universe. Nobody does that. And so then she was happy because she knew she would see him again, right? And then when she went, to go see Endgame opening night, because she lobbied for that. She lobbied to go see Endgame opening night. And she came home amped because she had seen him. In my best Rafiki voice, the king has returned. And I remember I went to see Endgame that same week, that weekend, and I remember watching and just being a 7-year-old girl all over again. Looking over my cousin's shoulder as he drew these ink and paper people from one book he was reading, or comic book he was reading, to his sketch pad. I was there again, right? And I remember the portal scene where everybody came back, and I remember in theater as a 38-year-old woman, I was just crying. I was crying like boo-hoo, wet face, crying. I was inconsolable. I was inconsolable. Not because that I didn't think I would see him again, because of course, I've been reading these comics and immersed in this world for a while, so I know nobody really dies in the MCU or Marvel or the Marvel comic universe proper, that we actually have to find the source material for the MCU, right? But the one thing that brought the tears were, he was still there. They hadn't erased him. He was still an integral part of everything that was going on. I was relieved that in the final chop, however, the movie wizards put things together, they didn't forget him. They didn't forget him. Because it's so easy to look over black characters and say, okay, this person doesn't matter. These lines don't matter. This doesn't matter. Let's just remove this and because nobody will notice. The first people you see in the portal scene, aside from Falcon, who is now Captain America, but you see T'Challa and you see Shuri and you see General Okoye. I was relieved that they had not erased Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. I was relieved because for so long, when you are used to being relegated to margins or easily erased, or when it seems as if that your existence in a particular place or particular nation at this point seems to be so minuscule, to be so devalued, and it seems to be sport to kill you. It was a relief to see him. It was a relief to see him. It was a relief that the gods of Disney and Marvel didn't erase him. I know, he was caught up in the snap. We know that, but it was a relief for me as a black writer to see that and see someone who looks like me on screen, and they didn't forget. And they didn't forget. And they didn't forget. So, yeah, this one hits different. This one hits different. This one really hits different. Because, again, it feels like we've been robbed. It feels like we have been robbed. It feels like we have been robbed. But my heart is happy that he's not suffering anymore. My heart is happy that my daughters and even my grandchildren will see him on screen. It is comforting to know that he was here. That he was here and oh so talented. And oh so talented. And for that reason, I could write a little bit more tomorrow. But my hope and prayer is that for you all who may be inspired by his life, that you do the thing that inspires you, the thing that calls to you, that you follow your passion with both hands, with both feet running after it, that your hands be open to any opportunity by which you can exercise said talent. That you can do all things propelled by your imagination, if that be what you want to do. But again, in a world that desires to erase you, if it does not see any value in you, to criminalize your very existence, to make your being illegal, it was beautiful to have him. It was beautiful to have him. And from that place of gratitude, I am happy. I'm not gonna sign off with Wakanda Forever because we know Chadwick nearing the end kind of got weary of that. But what I will say is this: Thank you, God, for giving us Chadwick Boseman. Thank you. Thank you to Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and the phenomenal Christopher Priest for being bold enough to create a character like Black Panther. Thank you to the casting directors and agent who made sure that Chadwick Boseman was picked and indeed chosen to be T'Challa. For that, I am thrilled. And thank you to people who supported his movie when they didn't even know, even if they just went to go see the movie just to see what the credits would look like, to see what was going on. They matter too. But I hope that you all, especially those of you who are at the intersection of Black and writer, especially Black male and writer, I hope that you all see through his life that storytelling matters. Then and there is a power to story. There is a power to owning a narrative. It is a power to that. And from that power, I hope that you are encouraged to write your own story down, because you matter as well. Because you matter. So pay homage to our King, to Chadwick Boseman, by following your passion, wherever it may lead you. Even if you get a little scared at times, but keep going. Keep going. If you don't do it for me, do it for him. And do it for the God who sent you here on this planet in the vessel that is your body, with a capable heart, mind, and spirit, with whatever gifts, talents, and skills you have. Honor the Creator by being creative, if that be your niche. But again, he has, I believe, so much more that he could have given, if given the time. But I'm grateful for the time that he did give. And I've already talked to my audio producer for the Writer's Block, and we're already going to put my piece, How Do You Bury a King, on the Send for a Poet segment. So make sure you are following the Writer's Block for that particular show. So that's going to be next week, because we know that Annette King, the founder of the Blurb Diva, was on this week. So next week will be a bonus show. So for that bonus show, make sure you listen all the way to the end to hear me perform my own work. How Do You Bury a King? So I thank you all for your time. I send you love, light, and blessings. And Wakanda forever.